Stanley, Carson Church. Thanks for tuning in. Hey, there's times when I'm doing something, whether I'm like working on my car or my bike or running or something like that, I think about all the things that God has done for me in my life to get me to where I am right now. Paul wrote this to the Roman church, and in Romans chapter 8, he says, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose." There are times when you're going through something, it doesn't seem good, it doesn't seem right, and it's very frustrating. And all the time, God's working something out in the background for the good. I can remember years ago as I was being called in the ministry, I worked in this place, and I worked with this guy who was very shady. And we worked in a power plant, and this position for a power plant supervisor came open. So there were like three of us applied for it. And it was me, this guy that I got ready to tell you about, and another guy in my shop. Well, come to find out that the guy who worked with me in my shop, and I also went to church with, got the job. And I found out later that when we took the test, and it included all things about power plant operation, refrigeration, things like that, I was the only one that passed the test. But the reason I didn't get the job was because he was going to the bosses and telling them things like, Paul and this other guy doesn't do anything all day long. They sit around and smoke weed all day long, and I have to do all their work, and I fill out all the work orders. I just put their name on it so they don't get in trouble, which none of it was true. Now, here's the rough part about it. I went to church with this guy, and every Sunday morning he'd get up and talk about, I just want to praise the Lord for all the good things that God does for me and for all the people I'm witnessing to at work. And I worked with him, and I knew that that was a lie too. Because no one at work could stand this guy, because the way he was doing me and being shady with me, he was that way with everyone. And I got to the point where I was so frustrated. But I tell you, and I was a fairly new Christian at the time, but there was a part of me that just wanted to split him open, But the Lord kept me from doing so. And I just started praying. I said, Lord, either you send me to a new church or you get me a new job, because I can't take this guy much longer. And what happened eventually, so long story short, is he moved that guy off to a new church because he did some things in our church that, showed who he really was, and got me a new job. When the process of getting me that new job, I doubled my income, and it made my schedule flexible, because in the process of being called, I had to go to college and get some classes done. And beforehand, in that job that I was in, I couldn't afford it. And I didn't have the time to do it. But when I got the new job, it put everything in place, and it initiated my call into ministry and provided everything that I needed: the time, the flexibility, the pay, everything needed to get me to where I am today. And I had to think about it now. I was like, you know what? I'm thankful for that guy and for the way that he was, because if he wasn't that way, I may have stayed. Or if I'd gotten that supervisor's position, I may have just been complacent and stayed in that job, and who knows where I'd be right now. But God put me in a place where I needed to be, and did things that put me into a position where I had to make decisions on certain things and move in certain ways that got me to where I am now. And so now, previously that guy was a pain in, and I couldn't hardly stand to be around him. But now I have to thank him, because it's because of him that pushed me to follow what God wanted me to do in the first place. I just couldn't realize it at the time. So that long story is just to tell you this. You might be in a position right now and things are going on. You're wondering what's going on. You're wondering where God is. Wait for the Lord. He'll work out all things to the good of those who love him. Remember when Joseph was thrown into slavery and all these things and sold by his brothers and abandoned by his brothers, he told them in the end, because what you meant for bad, God turned around for good. And he might be doing that in your life today. So I encourage you to hang in there, look for what God's doing, and trust him. If you're his, trust him to do what's right. He might be working in the background, setting something up greater than you could ever expect. Hey, God bless you. I love you in the Lord, and I'll talk to you next time.